If you love threat hunting and you like security operations and you work in enterprise trying to protect resources kind of in real time in an operations center, you want to stick around. I've got an expert here, somebody running a company that works in that area, and I think you're going to enjoy it, so I hope you stay with us. Hi, this is Ed Amoroso from TAG. I want to welcome you to our discussion. I have a really interesting guest in the studio today. It's Peter Prizio, who runs a cool company called SnapAttack that I suspect a lot of you who do security ops and definitely threat hunters will already know, but you're going to enjoy hearing from Peter and hear some of his advice and guidance and trends and so on. So, Peter, I want to welcome you to our studio. How are you doing?
Doing great, thanks, Ed.
Hey, before we get into talking about, I have a million questions for you. Tell us about the company. What do you guys do at SnapAttack?
Yeah, so SnapAttack is a platform, and we are a unified proactive security platform that helps companies hunt and detect threats faster. And unified is kind of the key term there. Really what we do is we start everything with threat intelligence, and threat intelligence informs, along with the intelligence and the context of the organization, what a customer's threat landscape looks like, what their threat profile is. We can measure their detection coverage. In light of that threat profile, we can identify the gaps, prioritize the remediations, and then take some rapid action to enhance and validate their protection going forward.
Those are big themes now, all very important. You guys were, when was the company created? It was created a number of years ago. It was spin out.
It's been 2 years, 2 years this past week. But little secret, we were actually built under the Booz Allen Hamilton umbrella.
So I always thought that was really kind of cool. When you guys first showed me the intellectual property, and I thought, wow, new companies never have this much cool stuff. And then I thought, oh wait, you guys had come from a really interesting place. That's a good way to start.
It is. We got to kind of side skirt some of the basement garage days, right? Where we jumped in where we had already had some validation from kind of the best and the brightest in the country, building this product and really doing some cool threat hunting, detection, engineering, adversary emulation type work.
Yeah, don't take this wrong. It looked way too good to me.
No,
when
absolutely.
I saw it, I went, whoa, this is really good stuff. So, hey, a term that you guys use, as we all know threat hunting, but you guys use a term that I think is awesome, is detection engineering. Tell me how that sort of relates to threat hunting, because that seems to be something that is resonating, and I'd like people to get a sense of how the two relate.
Yeah, so detection engineering is the actual work that it takes to identify the behavior of a threat or an attack, and create the analytic that's going to find that. And so threat hunting dovetails into that, because threat hunting usually starts with some sort of a search query that you're running in your SIEM, in your EDR, and your other telemetry systems. Detection engineering is really the art of creating that query. And so what's hard and challenging about detection engineering is you have to be both part threat researcher and well-versed in the syntax and language that your security tools use for their database queries.
I know that having run a lot of that in my career, the big issue is always time. Like it takes hours and hours to do things. As you guys have shown me a little bit about the platform, it strikes me, I don't want to diminish the value and the threat, but just the time seems to be shorter. Is that, you hear that a lot from people? Like this task that used to take me this amount is way shorter. Is that a big theme?
It's a key value that we offer, both for things that we already have in our platform. So our platform is comprised of thousands of pre-captured threats and also thousands of pre-created detection queries that can be translated into downstream tooling. So that comes out of the box, right? You're ready to go. You kind of hit the ground running. So if you're interested in a particular threat, you can just search it in our library, identify those things that are going to work for you, and deploy them out either in terms of a hunt or a detection alerting rule in your telemetry systems. But what starts to make that even more rapid is we've built into this unified platform the ability to trace that workflow from threat intelligence through to that query and validate that it's going to be functional. And what we mean by that is we allow effectively the threat researcher to identify from the relevant intelligence articles what the attack looks like. We have effectively a range on demand where you can detonate real-world attacks. You can execute real-world attacks in a safe, secure environment that's not your own network, and pull out that telemetry and the forensics that are left behind. And from there, you can build using our what we call detection engineering lab. You can build those queries without having to write any code. So it's really point and click based off of that telemetry that you learn. So we're really getting to the point where we're starting to upskill the analysts into these more advanced roles of detection engineer, threat hunter, threat researcher, because the workflow is really kind of a seamless, straightforward process that goes from intelligence to adversary emulation to detection creation, engineering, to I've deployed it into my network.
You packed a lot into that.
Yes, there's a lot that
That's
goes
good.
into
Let's
it.
unravel a couple of those things. There's a lot in there. Let's back up, because threat hunting. Is that typically the customer? Is that the user? Is it usually somebody in an ops center who's doing hunt, intel, research? That's the primary hands-on keyboard for your platform?
Correct. Yes, primary user. Depending on how the organization's set up, right? We see a lot of more mature organizations, right? They're single-threaded. So you've got threat hunters doing threat hunting, and detection folks doing detection, curation, and CTI folks doing intelligence. But a lot of other organizations that don't have that resource, you see a lot of like multi-hats, right? You might have the SOC operator also responsible for not only triaging their alerts, but doing some threat hunting if they get the downtime, which rarely happens. So those are the organizations that we really do help quite a bit, because we can enable that person to do some of these activities in a much more rapid and controlled fashion.
So with that group, let's talk outcomes now, because so we know the role, we know sort of the environment. What is a typical sort of thing they're trying to do? Like what are the, I don't know, maybe some examples or use cases of outcomes, but what does success look like when they're working with your platform?
So few outcomes that we really enable. On the detection engineering front, we focus on detection coverage. Right? So in light of that threat profile.
Huge issue.
Huge.
Topic one that comes up when we deal coverage, for sure.
And ultimately what we try to get to is we really try to get to a state where there's confidence in that detection estate. That it's kind of a functional, well-oiled machine. It's tuned to the threats that matter for that particular organization. That in of itself is so foundational and rarely done, and it traces all the way back to that threat profile. Right? Organizations have to be able to distill down what threats matter to them and why they matter, and then how well they stack up against them, rather than trying to play like the what's in the news whack-a-mole, right? Like what's the flavor of the week? Sometimes that's important because they're prevalent, they're widespread, but sometimes they're a bit of a distraction. And this really gives you that playbook and roadmap to enhance your detection coverage in your estate. So what it really looks like for us, we come in, we do a baseline assessment, we'll validate the detections that are there, map them back to that threat profile, and identify those gaps. And then from those gaps, the user can simply search the threat that they're interested in, or search that technique that they're trying to fill. And by the way, we map everything to the MITRE ATT&CK framework from a TTP perspective. So they find that TTP, and we've served them up detections that are going to work in their environment. They're scored for how much false positive that they're going to incur by deploying this as an alert rule, or they have a slew of hunt queries that are kind of at their fingertips where they can get started with that hypothesis.
Most of those environments today are kind of chaotic. There's a zillion point solutions all over the place. Is that also one of the themes, like maybe, again, having done some of this, I know that the image comes to mind of all these different tools. Some good, some not so good, and usually somewhat chaotic management and coordination.
Absolutely.
Are you guys cleaning that? Is there a cleanup in aisle 9 on that for you guys?
A little bit of both. It's funny that you mentioned that. I like to call it point solution chaos, right? Because what do you wind up doing? You get all of these point solutions together. They're rarely seamlessly interoperable. So you have to create, some homegrown tooling or some scripting to make these things work together. There's a lot of bubble gum and duct tape. And then if, that person who did that leaves, who knows how to maintain all of that, keep going forward. So what we focus on is the interoperability and of our detection and hunt queries with those telemetry tools. We integrate with, it's roughly 40 different platforms today. It's kind of an ever expanding set, but our whole goal is to enable a seamless hunting experience across all of those platforms, wherever the telemetry lives. We rather not bring back all telemetry into our platform like more something like an XDR that's kind of ingesting everything from everywhere. We want to bring our queries and analytics down to those tools that already exist and pull back just those hits.
That's so, I don't know what you charge, but whatever it is, it's worth it just for that. You were mentioning a range. I love that idea. Is that a popular kind of capability now, sort of simulating and doing live range? I've always been a proponent of that.
It is, and it's also an integral part of how we do our business, right? We use it, our threat research team uses it to create our content, but it's so challenging for organizations to really just get the, I'll say, political or business authorization to do bad things in their own environment. And this provides them an opportunity to... Rightly so.
Yes,
rightly
if
so.
If it's not controlled, you can make a
Absolutely.
big mess. Right?
And so we offer a very controlled place to go do bad
I like
things,
that
right?
so much.
But the key there is we have a delineation between emulation and simulation, right? And so emulation is the real bad thing being executed, and we're capturing sort of what's left behind. That becomes the answer key to our detection and hunt queries. We can map those right back and say, yes, this detection query is going to detect the behavior that is explicitly left behind in that real-world attack.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right? You wouldn't want to now inject that real-world attack against your own network. There's risk involved. So now you can back that up with a simulation that tests that detection query, whether it's through trying to find the fields that are present, right? So now we're testing that detection is functional inside your network through a low-risk manner. So we're building the detection off of the real world attack, and we're testing using a simulation in your network. So really kind of the end-to-end workflow. Earlier you asked about what we call detection engineering. We really focus in on something that we call the detection development lifecycle. And it sounds a lot like the software development lifecycle for software. It's the same idea. We want to be able to control the detection code, just as you would in using something like a code repository with automated testing and integration tests and system tests. We want to be able to do the same thing with the detection code. You build the code, we have a unit test with the true positive from that attack emulation that we want to test it against, make sure that it's going to do the thing you intended to do, and then you deploy it to SnapAttack proper. We'll actually run that against all of our malicious data sets and identify how noisy this might be at a kind of an integration test layer, and then you deploy it into your environment, and we can test it in your environment and validate that it's functional in the like kind of the system test, the production test over there. So we kind of hit it at every step of the way to make sure that again, I'll bring back confidence. You're confident in that detection. You're confident that it's going to do the thing that you're trying to do, and you're confident that it's not going to blow your sock up with a bunch of false positives.
One of those rare cases where your platform, this threat hunting platform, can actually be sort of in a shift left mode. Like you're being very preventive. And that's not something we usually say about threat hunting platforms. Usually it's like sit around and wait until you get hacked and then figure out what happened. So that's one thing I love about what you do. Well, is it an easy thing to deploy? Like if somebody wants to deploy, what is there POC, or they drop it in? I would imagine drop it in the environment and start using it, right?
It's pretty
I bet
turnkey.
it's simple.
We usually do a POC engagement. It's really more of a value demonstration.
Yeah, right.
But it's all API integrations. I would say the most challenging piece is we will tailor, especially a SIM integration, we'll tailor to custom configurations of the SIM for things like field names, and make sure that our detections map to the correct things on the downstream. But that's, again, we sit down with the customer. It takes a couple hours, and we're running.
Well, let's hope 10% of the 60 million people that we have watching our video right now. That would be nice.
That
right?
would be great.
Maybe get you 10% of those. But if people who are watching, what is the website the best place to go to get info on getting started?
Yep, they can visit our website. We've got a contact us form. They can book a demo, or catch us on our LinkedIn page.
I hope they do. I think that this is good stuff. I've been very intrigued by what you guys do. I stare at these platforms all the time, and they all look the same. You guys had something a little different. Like I said, right out of the gate, it struck me as something a little better than I'd seen. And then as I got a sense of detection engineering, I thought, this is a pretty good idea. You guys have a tool. I'm feeling you guys are going to be growing pretty rapidly.
Well, I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, keep doing what you're doing. It helps keep us all safe. That's the whole point, right? So I appreciate you doing what you're doing.
Thanks,
and
Ed.
Thanks for coming by to visit.
It's my pleasure.
You bet. And for everyone else watching, we'll see you next time.